Crude, The Real Price of Oil, a film by Joe Berlinger, presented by Sehar Juddha. This documentary concerns one of the largest and most controversial environmental lawsuits to date. It takes place in the Amazon jungle of Ecuador and pits 30,000 indigenous people against the U.S. giant Chevron, which bought its predecessor Texaco in 2001. The plaintiffs include the Amazon Defense Front, American lawyer Steve Donziger, and Ecuadorian lawyer Pablo Fiardo, and their claim is that Texaco spent 3 decades polluting the water, air, and land of Ecuador. They argue that oil spills and toxic waste dumps have caused increased rates of health problems such as cancer and leukemia, destruction of homes, and degradation of cultural traditions. Chevron claims the case is unfair and a plot by environmental conmen for financial gain from a corporation. In 1990, when Texaco left Ecuador, they handed all responsibility of oil drilling to Ecuador's own company, Petroecuador. Prior to this, Petroecuador was the major partner in a consortium with Texaco Petroleum. For this reason, they denied all accusations and also pointed out that more oil spills had occurred on behalf of Petroecuador since 1990. Chevron lawyers argue that what has happened here is industrial exploitation permitted by Ecuador's own law. Additionally, scientists hired by Chevron claim that there is no evidence of increased cancer rates due to contamination. This is a map of Ecuador that shows the areas of oil exploration by Texaco Chevron and the oil production areas in the region. This issue takes place mostly in the Lago Agria region of the Amazon rainforest where the Texaco stations were located. The documentary, however, is filmed in multiple locations in Ecuador and the United States to show different viewpoints. The case is considered a very controversial topic because it deals with human rights, multinational corporations, and environmental justice. Also, it seems there is no clear answer due to lack of evidence concerning disease and the confusion of which company is responsible for what damage. This is a picture of a skin rash that is very common in infants born in Ecuador near oil drilling sites. While the plaintiffs and indigenous people blame Chevron's carelessness for this condition, investigators hired by the corporation point instead to the lack of sewage systems and fecal matter present in the rivers and streams surrounding these families. Why does it matter? Donziger and Fiardo's case fights for environmental justice for the Amazon rainforest, one of the most biodiverse regions on the whole planet. It is also a classic example of how government and corporations influence each other and work together or against each other. Many say this lawsuit marks the reversal of American companies' treatment of Latin America as merely a backyard of resources. Lastly, this film touches on Ecuador's changing government and how it played a role in the case. Before 2007, when Rafael Correa was elected president of Ecuador, the country had 8 presidents in a decade, and this caused much uncertainty of the future. But with a new progressive mindset, Correa brought about a positive change in Ecuador, and for once the people were heard. To the right is a picture of Correa signifying his launch of Chevron's Dirty Hand, a campaign to raise awareness in the international community about the impact of the oil industry. After consulting several external sources, I was able to compile a timeline of the lawsuit leading to the most current situation of the case. In 1993, Donziger and others filed a lawsuit against Texaco in a federal district court located in New York. After deciding that it would be better heard in Ecuador, the case was dismissed. It was refiled in Ecuador in 2003, and 7 years later, the Ecuadorian court issued a $19 billion judgment against Texaco. However, that same year, Donziger was sued by Chevron for fraudulent practices, including ghostwriting the court-appointed expert's report and the bribing and threatening of judges to rule in his favor. This trial began last month and is ongoing. This documentary encourages the audience to ask questions about environmental justice. It presents both sides of the legal drama, though in stylistically different ways. Chevron's point of view is showcased in non-interactive interviews with company lawyers and scientists. In contrast, the plaintiff's point of view is seen through Stephen and Pablo's interviews with the families affected and the gradual development of their legal strategies. Further research and more current news about the case reveals possible fraud on Donziger's part. This counter-accusation is discussed in one of the articles I have cited. Steven Donziger fabricated evidence, ghostwrote court reports, and even bribed a judge to influence the judgment against Chevron in Ecuador, said Chevron spokesman Morgan Crinklaw. Throughout this trial, we intend to hold him accountable for his actions and prevent him from profiting from fraudulent judgment. Locally, the indigenous people are faced with disease, destruction of property, and degradation of cultural traditions. At the same time, the nation's government is becoming more and more progressive, holding campaigns and supporting the voice of the people under Correa's administration. On an international level, this case could change the way international business is conducted and the way Americans view Latin America in regards to resources.